Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Florida Relocation Guide. Once again, my name is Adam Hancock, and today I'm going to riff on four really important topics when it comes to the 2023 Sarasota, Florida housing market. I'm going to talk about the price drops. I'm going to talk about how to rank new construction builders versus each other in order. You know, what the hell is a CDD fee and what else is involved in total cost ownership in Florida versus elsewhere, and even alternative options when it comes to awesome new construction areas if they don't quite fit your criteria. This is part one of a two-part series. Really hope you enjoy. Okay, the first area I'd like to discuss with you guys is about the price drops. You know, this topic has been very heavy on the minds of the people. On and off YouTube, people have been talking about it in droves, and validly so. Everybody's wondering what's going to happen. So I can make the most informed decision in the near future and not so near future what is actually going to happen. Well, I think right off the bat, no one knows. You know, I think forecasting this really deeply is a guess at absolute best. And at worst, it's pushing you in a direction because the person pushing you is incentivized to do so. So what I think would be best would be to get a way better feeling personally of a no regrets model of what you think is going to happen. And the way to do this in my mind is simply getting a lot closer to the numbers. And you can do this with a myriad of different things on the internet. We could help facilitate this, obviously, but get way closer with the numbers of one of these scenarios that you're predicting in your mind or you're thinking through. What is the net effect on economics if it happened or didn't happen? And how urgent do you need to be or not so urgent based on that result? So a couple examples. Okay, we're sitting here in March in 2023, and say you could buy now, but you're saying like, I think things are gonna get better by June, etc. As far as price dropping on resale home, for example's sake. Well, how far is it gonna drop? You know, the market here would matter a lot, like the particular market you're looking in geography-wise, but how far are they going to drop? So probably not $100,000, right? So are you talking like, I'm gonna save $20,000 on the principal of the home? Okay. So what's the landed effect of $20,000 in the type of mortgage you're going to do? You know, how much, you know, what's your concern? Is it just getting the right value principal, like the principal of the home, or is it getting a cheaper monthly payment, or both? And also, what's going to happen with interest rate in June versus now? So if price drops 20K, interest rate goes up a half a point, you know, where does that net out? What's the landed cost of that, if any? So that's something I would look at. Another way to look at it would be new construction incentives. So say that new construction demand is dwindling and, you know, say right now they're giving away $25,000 towards closing costs and prepaid expenses, which they're able to do if you use their lender or their title company, etc. Well, what if in June the price of the house drops, but the incentive goes away? So what saved you more money? $25,000 of pure cash at the closing on 1, 2, 3 percentage points of the principal, or, you know, saving $25,000 on the price of the home and losing the incentive because they didn't want to give both. So I would just get a lot closer to the numbers, because a lot of these things, when you do the math of them, then a lot of the hysteria around just getting a win, the price just dropping, a lot of times it isn't as impactful, or it's actually the opposite of what people truly want. And by no means would I say buy now and not later because of this topic. I'm just saying what I'd want to do is, it's hard to know who to trust. I would just want to personally feel better about the numbers. That's the way I would look right now at price drops, because regardless of what happens and regardless of what people say, knowing exactly what's going to happen with the numbers based on any scenario you could guess, that will not change. All right, the second area I want to talk about is new home builder rankings. I know no one really wants to rank these guys, thinking you're going to alienate someone or offend someone, but I actually do have an opinion on this, and I don't think these things are all apples for apples. I think there's a way to look at it not biasly that would benefit a consumer when they're in their search, because there's a lot to pick through. There's a lot to consider on just the builders versus each other. And any builder is going to talk about only their builder. So I'm going to give you an opinion speed round. Again, it is my opinion, but a speed round of categories, and then talk through how to think about it. First, I start with custom, and we're focused on the suburbs here mainly. Custom construction, Sarasota Manatee Greater, Arthur Ruttenberg, Lee Weatherington, John Cannon, stock developments in here, Anchor, you get closer to the coast, Heritage, Design and Build, Allegra. But these guys innately are going to have a lot more focus on a lot less homes, 25, 50 total homes a year. So you're going to have all of their money and time poured into this. More concierge experience, maybe a little bit longer build time, not as egregious as it used to be versus the rest of the world now, but probably a little higher level of materials, both structurally and design-wise. And you can simply do things that you can't do a lot of places. You can move walls, change the floor plan orientation, attics, garages, pool space, how the home sits on the land. These are open conversations, not like most places that are you come, pick, and go kind of thing. You know, possible pitfalls with the new home builds though, because of the low density, it's more scarce. You have to like where they're building. So you're not going to find a neighborhood and saying who's building here. You're going to the builder and say, where are you building? And if you don't like the 2 neighborhoods they're in right now, deal breaker. So that's custom. Okay, right under the custom category, saying that you don't like the land they're on, the neighborhood, or it's just overkill for you. You want a high-end house. You don't need to build it from scratch. You don't need all of that. I would have a couple builders in that conversation. I'd put Toll Brothers in there. I would put Homes by Town, Coulter, beyond logistics aside, and Neil Signature. So Neil Communities, regular builder, different category on this list. Neil Signature is their semi-custom brand. All of these guys, you are going to have a really high-end feeling house. Now, the last couple of years, customer service and a lot of these things have been issues at builders on this list. But I'm just talking about the house. You're gonna have a really high-end house, and you're gonna be able to do a little bit more, not as much as custom, but a little bit more if you wanna make small changes to the floor plan or to the closets or et cetera, and also a little higher end level, in my personal experience, of base level of materials. Countertops, the way the kitchens are, the way the floor materials are, the pool options as well. So I'd put those in this category. Okay, right under that. So we had custom, not quite custom, right under that. In the normal building realm, pick a base plan, pick a lot. Can't separate it really from the home though. Can't buy the lot separate. Pick structural upgrades. I'm gonna do a pool, etc. Design the home. It's a pre-packaged home with maybe 20 different floor plans to pick from. I'd have Taylor Morrison, Neil Communities regular, and I'd also throw Medallion. I'm not sure if you're super familiar with them. Medallion on this as well. Taylor and Neil are, typically people have viewed them pretty much like similar to each other in a lot of the communities as far as like they built a lot of the similar vibes. People loved their 3,000 square foot single story home on 62-foot plane. And then you get to a 52-foot collection and a 45 and villas. They'd done very similar things, and the way you could shop them, it looked very similar. And people typically liked the communities they were in. And then Taylor Morrison has a lot of Mediterranean aesthetics, and then British West Indies was Neil's jam. So people kind of viewed them like sisters of each other in different aesthetics, more or less. It's more intricate than that, but that's a lot of how people viewed them. And I think if you're gonna do a normal build, then a lot of these guys have something that most people can satiate a need, and the pricing, at least historically, has made sense for that. Medallion, more niche and more semi-custom than not, but as far as like the abundance that they're building and people's familiarity with them, I think it's better on this particular one. But I do feel like they build some really interesting homes, really high-end feeling. They're just not around a lot. Okay, right under that. So if you're not Taylor and Neil, I would say Pulte is under that. I'll explain that in a minute. But Pulte, MI Homes, Mattamy, the offshoot brands of like Taylor Morrison. So Taylor Morrison will build a Neil Esplanade community, but then they'll build a Park East, or they'll build a Casilla. And it's a different brand that they're trying to make more affordable, especially for like families or a big family size. Different floor plans and a different orientation of the communities on purpose. So it's not the same as the one above, but still higher than a lot. So I put these guys all on this list. The thing with like a Pulte, a lot of people would find Pulte should correctly belong to the category against Taylor and Neil because it's very similar. But my experience of taking a trillion people around feels like a lot of people don't like the floor plans quite as much and feel like they're a little bit behind the times in the upgrades and etc. Just depends, right? But then they've jumped a lot back into the conversation based on having unbelievable pieces of property, like Shoreview and Waterside. And if you get the right piece of land and you're like, okay, I like Taylor more than Pulte, but it's 18 minutes from what I deem important. So, it gets more even there. Okay. So that's the rest of the normal build. Then let's get a little bit more specialty here. So family, small company centric, I would say David Weekley and Homes by West Bay. David Weekley they don't build a ton in Sarasota. Like they have Fox Trace, Payne Park downtown. They're building Emerald Landing in the new Waterside district. but they are more of the normal build kind of builder. Nothing, it's not custom by any means. It's very like middle of the road as far as like all the stuff you can do. But the experience was kind of special. Like the way they treated the experience felt way more concierge. So it was unique for that level of a builder. Especially number two, 55 and up brands, very different. So Del Webb, which Pulte owns, Pulte is the parent company for Del Webb, and people view them very different. People like will be romantic about Del Webb, but would not be interested in just buying regular Pulte. It's just different. Crestwind by Coulter is another 55 and up in the local area. So that would give you like a high-end version of 55 and up. Okay, more affordable versions. These are guys that are relatively normal builds, maybe not full inventory spec builders, but they're supposed to be more affordable on purpose. Centex, so Centex again is owned by Pulte. So Pulte regular, Del Webb, Centex, but Centex is their affordable brand. They're not telling you it's not. It's supposed to give them more affordability, and they're arranging the build process to do so. Adams Homes in there, Ryan Homes is definitely in there. Ryan Homes is also building a new, relatively affordable and prospective community to Lakewood Ranch. So Centex, Ryan, Adams, amongst others. Okay, the bottom of the new construction building realm as far as the business model and what they're trying to do, I would say is Lennar and D.R. Horton, because these guys are simply not trying to do anything but make it all in one. They're building whether you're coming or not, economies of scale to materials because they know exactly what they're going to do. They can buy in bulk, they can buy in advance, they can control the build times. They know exactly what's going to happen for the most part, and they're usually translating that to customer savings. So D.R. Horton and Lennar, again, like a lot of people will poo-poo them in the conversation, but again, they are not trying to be custom. So as long as they relay a value proposition that it comes in savings or something like that, then it could be a value because you chose it. You didn't get tricked into it, right? Okay, so that's how I'd rank them off the bat. Now, the thing to consider here is location, amenities, and the trade-off value proposition, right? So in a perfect world, right? Yeah, if you were standing next to each other, the price was the same, and you had two builders, and you said, oh, this one's definitely better. Yeah, that would be great, but it's never the case. It's never, ever the case, right? A builder that you love that is 25 minutes from everything you deem important versus a builder that you rank right under them being in the perfect location might win out. Golf community versus a builder that you really wanted might win out. So you got to really look at it. It's never even. You know, Lakewood Ranch is a great example of this. It's never even. You have the waterside district, you have the middle, you have the parts that are far away, and you got to look at if I'm saving $150,000, then it's not even, right? So as long as you knew the full picture and you chose what you wanted or what you deemed important, and if what you deem important isn't what everyone deems important as far as a majority, then a lot of times you could leverage that. You can lean into what people would deem as a negative because it's a value to you. So again, I know it's hard to understand all of the builders that are in play here and all of the communities because there's a trillion, and they're all going to talk about themselves as being the best, because why wouldn't they, right? They work there. But the more you can understand about all of them, then it lets you actually make a conscious decision. Obviously, we can help with this, but lets you make a conscious decision. And that's how I would rank them. But again, as long as they're not apples for apples, it's not a true ranking. Okay, third up I want to talk CDDs, fees, and perspective in general. So I think a lot of times in Florida we assume that the way home ownership's arranged here and at cost is similar in a lot of other places, where I think it is different enough where we continue to get recurring questions about the ambiguity of what is it going to cost me monthly and initially as well. So I just want a quick explainer to see if I can help with that conversation. So the first thing, assume in this exercise we did a mortgage, we didn't pay cash, and we escrowed it, i.e. we put down probably 20% or less, someone else is handling it. In that scenario, the first part is very normal. The main bulk of that payment of like principal and interest is going to rely on the cost of the home, the interest rate, and the down payment. So that's normal. That's what you've already done. That's what you're already doing. And then we have the CDD pop up. The CDD is the most, the vague part that bothers people. So you go to a neighborhood, you're going to buy a new home, and it's like, okay, the CDD is $2,000 a year. You're like, what the hell am I paying for that for? What is that? Is that the same as the HOA, or what does that mean? Well, the CDD in essence is, even if a community is 10, 15 years old or brand new, there was nothing there in most of these cases when they first built these things out. So they acquired the land, they'd build the entire infrastructure, all the streets, all the stuff. And they take out basically these 30-year loans in essence, to fund all of this, and then it's spread amongst the homeowners in that community. And that's why all CDDs aren't the same, because maybe you're in the tiniest home in the neighborhood, you pay $1,600 a year, and someone else pays $2,300 because their square footage is like more of a commitment to the neighborhood, I guess. But the key of that is CDD, in pretty much every case, goes in your taxes. It's part of the taxes. It's not really separate. It's part of the taxes. If the home has existed for 3 or 4 years, then that annual tax estimate on the county tax collector's website should include the CDD. It should. Unless you had the one-off, someone paid it off, or it's incorrect, it should include the CDD. So if you look at CDD plus your annual taxes, so the $2,000 plus $8,000 of annual taxes, and you're committed to $10,000, a lot of times in our case, we're very heavy relocation, but New York, New Jersey, Canada, Illinois, Washington, D.C., California, Washington State, the combination of CDD and taxes here is cheaper than you're already paying in annual taxes. So the separation of how it's accumulated doesn't matter necessarily. And it is finite. When it's paid off, it's paid off. So that's how I would look at CDD and taxes, and that would be in an escrowed mortgage, but that's how they're combined. CDD is not this monthly thing you pay like an HOA. And then that brings me to HOA. The non-finite part of a community that has an HOA is it's run by an association, and it's maintenance. It's maintenance and possible additions and repairs, etc. So that one is maybe the $300 you're paying a month that's charged quarterly. It's always going to be like an ACH or a check. You're paying an association. It's nothing to do with the mortgage. It's not escrowed in pretty much every case. And then also it could vary depending on the amount of homes and if they have to what the reserves are, if they have to do things to the community and it's approved to add $5 a month to the HOA, etc. In my experience, they haven't egregiously changed in a big way other than like golf communities and stuff, but an HOA is the only real separate piece. The rest is in that escrowed mortgage, and it's not as different as you would think versus any other experience you've had in most states if you've built anything that's brand new or done anything in a newer community. Okay, the last item of discussion for this video, just so I don't make part 1 too long, is about resale communities around new construction ideas. So a lot of the reason of why we do and I talk the way I do is I really believe that a good way to get a micro view of a large geography quickly is by using new construction as a talking head. Look at Sarasota, Manatee County by using Lakewood versus East Sarasota versus Welland Park. And that lets you divide the town from each other, what everybody deems important. Let's use the pricing and the way the builders talk against each other to get a value proposition of the areas. And then when people hone in, a lot of times they'll pick, the water sides of the world. Offers a lot of what Lakewood has, most of what Lakewood has to offer. East Sarasota, where Sky Ranch and Artistry are at, new construction in a pretty good location to the town, mature landscaping because it's mixed in regular old school Sarasota building, or Welland Park, as Venice's version, it's close to the beach and all these kind of things. And they'll value the downtowns and they'll value the proximity to the beach or whatever they may value, right? And then if you're really high on that, then you're at the mercy of the builders at the time. And I don't know if your criteria works for it. I don't know if the orientation of what they, like the large lakes costing a lot of money where you don't value lakes, or the builders maybe, water sites considered the most attractive potentially, so it comes at a premium of price. So if all that doesn't work, then I really think that people get in a silo where they don't consider the resale at all. But the big key to being educated on that search, that's the whole key. It's not buying new, it's learning through new. The big key of being educated on that search, it gives you some options at that point, right? So a lot of the reasons that people end up going resale is it's really hard to get the location you value on if the new criteria doesn't work. And a lot of the resale communities were built in the best locations a lot of times because they were built first. So in Lakewood you have, country club community that was already built out. You have, if you go further down Lorraine, or University Parkway rather, and you get towards like the Lockwood Ridge and towards the mall and stuff, a lot of that stuff's resale. And look at the location on a map. You're same with like Palm Air and University Park. These areas already existed, but they're just not considered Lakewood Ranch. Founders Club, it's not considered the census for Lakewood Ranch. It's the same with like where Artistry and Sky Ranch is at in East Sarasota, is all of those communities. The reason there's only 2 or 3 communities, all of the rest are built out. So if you value like everything you loved about that and you like the new home, then you could buy resale homes built 2015 or greater and circle that on a map of everything else you valued, and it's very similar. The other thing is logistics, timing, and pricing. That's the easy one, right? Like, I don't have 18 months, or I don't want to wait 18 months for my wild blue house to be built, right? So can you buy a resale replica of it? And pricing, a lot of times, like, you pick that area and you're like, simply like, nothing in here works for my price point. So you look at the resales, the Greenbrook and Summerfield and Lakewood, you look at the resales. And then the other thing I would look at is what's not that different. If you go to Venice, the Welland Park area, and you're like, I love Welland Park Golf and Country Club. Well, have you ever seen Sarasota National? So, it was already built. Sarasota National is Lennar Golf, same thing. It's right down the street. Or if you've looked at Talon Preserve in Nokomis, or Beach Walk in Englewood, DeVosta, which is a Pulte-owned company, have you looked at Island Walk? So Island Walk was a community everybody was super high on. I think the oldest house in there is probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old in totality, but you have the same location you were targeting, maybe a better one, and the same builder, but 2 years ahead of time. It's the same with what Lakewood National is going to be to the new golf community that's coming in the soon, that's unannounced. Esplanade Golf and Country Club in Lakewood is the sister to Esplanade Azario in Lakewood, right? So you can even get way more defined of being like, I want exactly this same thing, and I just don't want to wait. You can buy one that's 2 years old in the same model. So something I would consider is more in this day and age with 18 to 20 month build times on homes that should take 8 months, then a lot of times all the things you were excited about might be so materially different by the time you get here that I would at least consider your education from learning about it. I would take all of that, and now you're equipped to engage in something remotely that you would have had no justification for if you didn't know everything you know now. All right, my friends, that is a wrap for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing and liking before you head out. Also, if we can assist you with any real estate needs, buying, selling, new construction, relocation, anything in between, we would love the opportunity. All of our contact information will be right here. Amazing team to assist. And finally, the URL below, the sunshinestateco.com. We have free relocation guides, free data tools. We have a newsletter that's like nothing else on YouTube. Please check that out before you go. And thank you again for watching. We'll see you on the next one.